Friends, welcome to this session. I am P.S. Khandelwal. I started my banking career in 1974 with State Bank of India. I retired at the end of 2017 from IndusInd Bank as Chief Compliance Officer. Today's subject is soft skills and strategies for recovery of bank loans. We shall discuss the following topics: communication skills, listening skills, interpersonal skills, persuasive skills, and negotiation skills. Friends, as you all know, banking business is a business where you need to deal and interact with large number of customers, large number of human beings, and communication skills are essential for building up relationships. Communication skills help in establishing and building those relationships and therefore do business better and deal with customers in a better way. We have learned that in financial inclusion, the including spreading the financial products, spreading the network, and those earlier excluded persons to be brought within the formal financial sector is an important objective. And in that, one important objective is about credit extension to these people, and which also means recovery. So, recovery is one essential part of financial inclusion, it, which needs to be taken care of when we are in the business of banking financial inclusion. Success and recovery depends on regulatory norms, compliance, also collection skills, and recovery strategy. Let's see about the skills which are required here. Communication, as we have also discussed earlier, is essentially done for having a common understanding between two or more persons. It establishes a same platform for two persons for their interactions. So during communication, exchanging ideas, information, and thoughts is one important process which is taking place. In the course of recovery, there is communication between the borrower and the business correspondent agent. Now, communication takes place in various manners. It could be written, it could be oral, but these are verbal communications. There could be communication through eyes and expressions, which is not verbal. So, communication types are verbal and non-verbal. Non-verbal communications are facial language, facial expressions, eye contact, voice language, voice tone, voice pitch, body language, body position, body movement, all any elements, message given. Any of these or all of these together can convey messages. These are non-verbal messages where words are not used. While verbal communication is when one talks or one writes letters, information, etc. You know that when we are talking among ourselves, even between two friends, if the facial expression changes, immediately you notice, no, there is some change, what has happened. If a person, while you are talking to a person, suddenly gets startled, just makes physical movement, you tend to ask him, what happened? So some message has been received that is non-verbal. So non-verbal message also have important part in communication. What are the main principles of effective communication? The agent's language, when you are dealing with the customers, the language, both verbal language and body language, should be civil and courteous. It should be proper. The language should not be rough. What is used in using the normal salutary words, talking with please, sorry, etc., that should be there. Objectives should be clear. There should be clarity in what is being said. Your message should convey very clearly your what you are saying should convey very clearly what is your objective. Why are you talking about? Is it a sales call? Is it for recovery? Is it for uh, knowing some information further? Simple language should be used in communication, not high flowing jargons, etc. Because interacting with very high flowing jargons does not establish that good rapport. And courtesy, of course, is important. The borrower should be able to understand, particularly the type of people when we deal with in financial inclusion, with them using too sophisticated a language, too technical words will make it difficult for them to understand, and that will create a gulf between the agent and the customer or the borrower. Be alert and sensitive to the responses when one is talking to the customer. While one is talking to the customer and also listening to what the customer is saying, paying attention to the customer's facial expressions, customer's body postures, customers' arms and feet, and any even slight tension being revealed in the muscular movements can be very, very useful. So, body language is important in nonverbal communication from the agent's side should not be adverse. While one may talk with very polite and polished language, but if the body posture is one that of as if uh, of superiority, which could mean the customer is being demeaned, it will not have proper effect. It will be not be helping in building up relationship. Even unintentionally, if the non-verbal communication from us to the other party should not be adverse. Then, in any communication, in any interaction, one needs to make sure that borrower is understood very clearly. And to do so, it may be necessary to repeat and clarify certain points, certain aspects, so that there is no scope for misunderstanding or communication gap. The most important element in communication is listening skills. Listening skill is so important that yes, the discussions on this, while earlier it has been discussed active listening, further on. What is listening actually? This skill is very essential, particularly in recovery. Listening is in all manner by which messages are received from the other party. So the other party is saying something, hearing it, trying to understand the words, looking for certain meanings which might be not so explicit but implicit in those words. But at the same time, if there is face-to-face conversation or oral over the phone, to receive the messages given through body postures, given through facial expressions, given through voice tone, etc., it is very useful, very important. Hearing and noticing facial and body expressions, therefore, helps in proper listening. What are the requisites of good listening? Hear the debtor very attentively. Don't be distracted and inattentive, because being distracted or inattentive, some points may have been missed. And when you listen to the debtor very attentively, in the during the course of conversation, certain information which may not have been known to you, which the borrower may not have intended to convey directly, but would have slipped during the course of conversation, might have slipped it, all that you'll be able to catch. Lack of listening is disrespect to others. When anyone is speaking to us, not paying attention to the person, not listening properly. So that means if a person has said something and he asks us to repeat, we are not able to repeat it, clearly shows that we were not listening to him. It means disrespect to others. There should not be any impatience or haste. One may lose important information in haste. While listening, if some unpleasant points are mentioned, if some issues are mentioned with which we don't agree, or we might feel little disturbed, one should not show any anger or disapproval in such cases, either orally or even through facial or body expressions. Then, during any conversation, basic etiquette is one speaks only when the other party has finished speaking, not to interrupt. Interruptions need to be done only when absolutely necessary. When is it? When if irrelevant matter is being talked about or unduly long matter is being prolonged for too long, or controversial aspects which are not related to the subject are being talked about, or time is very short, then only in such situations should one try to interrupt, but while interrupting, one should be saying, "Excuse me, please," and then very politely interrupt the other party. Significance of good listening. Why is it important? Why should I be only listening? Why should the other person not listen to me? Our objective is to build up good relationship with the other customer, with the other side. By listening well, it removes psychological distance between the two parties. If we listen well to the other party is drawn closer to us mentally. He is more favorably inclined towards us. The other, he or she, is then views us not as an adversary, but as one along with him or her. Active listening, good listening helps us to know more about the debtor. When we are listening very carefully to the debtor, yes, we know more about, because when a person talks and gives lot of information, which may be which we can miss out, minor aspects also become very useful in the matter of dealing with a debtor or borrower, and all that we can catch only with active listening. Sometimes during conversation, listening very carefully to with one debtor, listening carefully to him can help us in knowing certain information about certain other debtors, because after all it's a community, people talk about each other, so what information you one may not have known otherwise will come to know. By active relationship and with this networking, listening very carefully to each other, even in a group, when people are talking in general on general topics, listening carefully to all of them, one might find several statements coming related to one's own customers, one's own borrowers, which could be very useful information. They may appear to be trivial, but they may help you in handling or dealing with those persons. Active listening, good listening helps facilitates the smooth recovery process, because it establishes certain rapport with the debtor, better relationship with the debtor, and better relationship with debtor is useful for a smooth recovery process. What is interpersonal skill? Now, interpersonal skills are skills which are for interaction with other persons, one or more persons. Essentially, various soft skills which we have talked about are related to interpersonal skills. So they could be grouped into two broad: communication skills and listening skills. These two are important components they combine for the interpersonal skills, but it is plus something more. It's not just these two, but there is something else with it. Certain approach, certain attitude of developing rapport with the other persons. A good interpersonal skill enhances the relationship and understanding between parties. So, building up, having that ability to connect with other persons, using various skills to establish a connection, a relationship with the other persons, and also then to work on them to build up a bonding, to build up a rapport, is what could be termed as interpersonal skill. It helps in better relations. Now, when do persons relate with us favorably? If they find support to their dignity, if they find there is self-respect, their self-respect is maintained, their self-esteem is enhanced, their ideas and values are accepted, then the persons relate favorably. So, developing approach of treating everyone with dignity, keeping their self-respect enhanced, keeping their self-esteem, uh, ideas, appreciating all shades of ideas, appreciating all shades of values helps in relating favorably. A behavior. So, when we were saying one way of putting it in other words is one way of establishing interpersonal relation is having a behavior which enhances the self of other person. Then a behavior which diminishes the self of other person, the ego of other person, it disturbs the relations. If an agent has a posture of superiority, treats the customer with demeaning manner, then the debtor feels belittled and recovery becomes difficult. Rude or harsh behavior are counterproductive in recovery. Some elements of interpersonal skills are communicate and listen properly or effectively. So, listening effectively, have empathy and respect to the debtor. Any communication should not make debtor feel anxious, insecure, or threatened. Remove apprehensions of the debtor if there is any. If they feel apprehensive about any aspect, specify them, remove them. Give all information which a debtor asks about his debt and repayment. It is his right. He should know it's a matter of money, and he should know very clearly that yes, whatever his money has been dealt and accounted for properly. This helps in recovery aspect. Persuasive skills are very important. What is persuasion? Persuasion essentially is to deal with the other party to in a manner that yes, you can motivate in context of recovery, motivate the borrowers to repay the debt. Persuasion does not use force or it does not use pressure, but it is trying to motivate the person by talking about explaining to the person why the person needs to repay the debt, etc. So this requires a skill. In our common day life, we always find situation that yes, when dealing with friends or brothers, sisters, we don't agree on certain aspects on certain points at that time. One way is that we simply try to assert ourselves. No, this is how we need to do, and this is it has to be. But that does not convince the other. It does not help the situation. The other person, if it is weaker, may agree superficially. But on the other hand, if you discuss the matter in a manner convincing the other person by logic, by rational, and bringing around them around to your point of view, that is persuasion. It helps in establishing a good rapport and winning the other person's confidence, other person's bonding. In case of debt recovery, what are the elements of persuasion? One, to explain to the borrower, to the customer, why recovery or repayment of debt is important. Most of the borrowers may not be aware about the things, particularly in the financially excluded sector or come to financial sector for the first time. Explain to them, bank lends out of public deposits. Recovery facilitates repayment. So when the repayment is there, then with this repayment of deposits, otherwise the deposits will not be repaid and that will hamper the business. That will mean bank will not have money to lend any further. Secondly, it also helps in giving loan to other persons also when the funds are received back. So it means help to more number of persons, more people. Explain also to the customers that when you are approaching them and you are dealing with them, it is part of your duty and responsibility. You are fulfilling your. And secondly, also explaining to them that what is within your authority and what is not within your authority. You do not have authority to waive any part of the loan. You do not have authority to reduce any loan. At the time of, during the course of persuasion, it is not one-way traffic. Persuasion involves understanding the other person's situation, understanding the problems of the borrower, showing keen and deep, genuine interest in the borrower's problem and concerns, and try to give the assistance to the extent possible, in the manner possible. So the borrower feels convinced that yes, you are not against the borrower, you are on the side of the borrower, but at the same time, naturally taking care of the due responsibilities. You could also explain to the borrower that about on the grounds of values, on the grounds of ethics, repayment of money taken from anyone else is part of any human being's value system. Then also drawing attention to certain negative impact of non-payment. Non-payment can adversely impact the credit history of a person. It remains on the record and therefore uh, after that in future, if the person wants to borrow again, it may become costly or it may even be difficult in case of non-payment. Then non-repayment could also have other impact. There has been an agreement between the borrower and the bank, and it could be a breach of interest by the borrower, breach of agreement by the borrower. Bank can charge higher rate of interest in case of delayed payment, defaulted payment. Bank can take repossession of any assets, securities which have been charged. Then, if filing of suit has been there, bank can file the suit. So, but all this needs to be done in a manner of that you are guiding the customer, you are advising him, see, he should be careful why he should take care. It should not be done in a manner of threat because that will not help. That will make the customer retaliate, react with a negative approach. Do what you want. I am not going to repay. But the payment through persuasion, being as a friend, that what is the long-term interest of the customer, explaining that carefully is a part of persuasive skills. Negotiation skills. In recovery, particularly in case of difficult situations, negotiation skills are very important. Negotiation skills essentially mean trying to make the best out of a bad situation and having some give and take approach to try to minimize the losses, maximize the profit. Certain situations where negotiation skills are useful in the context of recovery are suitable for compromise debts where which are classified in doubtful category. Which are these debts? Security documents are either missing or these are impaired. That means the security documents, when you have a look at them, you find they were not executed properly. They have some fundamental defects, so will not stand in court of law. They have become time barred by certain events. Security which has been charged and on which bank was heavily relying has deteriorated in quantity or quality and will not cover the dues fully or will cover very, very minimally. Then there are certain times where there is no security. It's an unsecured loan altogether. In all these situations, if the repayment has not been coming, these are doubtful things, and there the negotiation skills become useful. Those corporate agents who have had experience of negotiations of such type of loans and have had recovery done may be given by their banks sometimes powers to do the initial negotiation. These will be powers for negotiating with the customer to arrive at a certain possible solution of recovery from the customer. Some important points to note in this respect are that one needs to follow the extent of authority. You cannot go beyond the authority given. Parameters of compromise need to be followed, that how much reduction of interest, how much reduction of principal is permissible, is possible, what should be the percentage of total dues which can be sacrificed. All these parameters need to be followed. It should be within that. Before the final stage and concluding the deal finally, once all these things have been discussed and some figure has been arrived at, formal approval from the bank on case by case is essential. And once that is taken, then the settlement agreement with the borrower is signed, recovery should be taken. Agents are given fees for this purpose, for handling such type of debts and negotiating such type of debts. And this fee is higher than the normal fee given in case for recovery in the normal case of normal advances. So, friends, we have discussed about certain skills which are important in respect of recovery of loans, bank loans. Hopefully, you have found this interesting and this will be useful for you in your profession, in your career. Thank you for